What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, thanks for tuning in. So today's video, you can probably tell by the title of it, we are going to be going over my recommended winter survival guide for the 7.3 liter Powerstroke. I know in my last video I said I was going to try to get started on my steel bumper fabrication build this week. This week's been kind of crazy, a lot of really big stuff has been going on in my life right now. I'm kind of in the middle of making the biggest decision of my life, biggest decision I've ever made. So that's kind of taken up a lot of my time and mental capacity. Some big stuff going on right now. Hopefully I'll be able to give you guys an update on that in the near future. But between that and the fact that it is just nasty rain out. Just nasty rain out right now. I'm not going to be working on that. I figured it's a really cold, wet, rainy day here in Oregon, which there's going to be a lot of those for the next number of months. But I don't really feel like being out in the rain too much right now, so I figured I would make this video for you guys, something I've thought about making for a while. If you hear that noise in the background, don't mind the gunfire or the sounds of freedom there in the background. Probably shouldn't be saying that word on YouTube so I don't get demonetized. Live not too far from a range, and it sounds like they're doing some training down there today. So don't mind that in the background. Leaning against the new table right here. Got the grinder mounted up, the vise mounted up. Turned out pretty sweet. You can see these lines in it, kind of like the I don't know, it's almost kind of like marble lining in it. That's from where the rust was. It kind of turned out pretty good. Got it all cleaned up, wire wheeled and oiled up, and it is nice and solid. Pretty sweet to have this thing done. Turned out well. I have a whole build series on this, or a video on this if you want to see it. But back to the meat and potatoes of this video. The kind of purpose behind this video is not so much for people that have been with 7.3s for a long time, but probably more geared towards the people that maybe just picked up a 7.3 for the first time, and this is their first time going into a winter with one. You see it every single year on the online forums and the online pages of people that have new with a 7.3 going through the winter. They have all sorts of different questions, and so I'm going to try to make a quick video for you guys to kind of cover all the main details of what you should know going into winter with a 7.3 Powerstroke. That being said, I also want any of you guys with more experience with these things to feel free to comment down below. I'm trying to turn this video into a really good place for people to go and find the information they need. So if I miss something or you have different tips or advice, put it down in the comments, and that way somebody that's new here can go down and read different input from people all over. That's how I learned everything I know about this truck, is one, jumping in and learning it, and two, talking to people that have been around this platform. I've been around the 7.3s for, I don't know, probably pretty close to 4 years now, so nothing crazy long, but I have learned quite a bit on them since I started. Kind of going into the whole diesel world, especially the 7.3 world, there's a whole lot of stuff to learn, and it's not all that complicated, just stuff you have to spend time learning. So that's kind of the purpose of this video. A lot of this stuff is going to be common knowledge to a lot of you people out there, but like I said, this is for the newcomers to the group, just trying to help some people out. So we're kind of going to be going through a few different systems on the truck, just kind of general knowledge. For those of you that are new here, new to the channel, I have a 2000 F250 7.3 liter Powerstroke. There are kind of two different generations of 7.3s. It is the OBS, or original body style, from 94.5 to 97, and then for the Super Duties were 99 to 2003, the first half year of 2003. And they're really similar, but they do have some differences. I'll try to explain the differences as we're going through the systems. So a very brief description of how the 7.3s work is they are glow plug style trucks, which means they have a glow plug in each cylinder. As you turn the key over, you get the wait to start light. That is sending power to your glow plugs, and they get red hot inside of each cylinder. The tip of the glow plug gets red hot inside of each cylinder. And that's what provides the heat inside the cylinders for the fuel to combust. Diesels don't use spark plugs. They run off pressure and heat. And so when it's super cold and your engine block is cold, they really need some extra heat to help get that very first combustion to get the process going. Now, the 7.3s are a little bit notorious for not being the happiest of trucks in cold weather. That being said, if you take care of it and you have a good, healthy truck, your truck should have no problem starting in pretty darn cold conditions. So really, the heart of these trucks is the glow plug system. If your glow plug system is not healthy, your truck is not going to be starting well. Even in warmer conditions, these trucks, for whatever reason, rely on the glow plugs pretty heavily to start. And so as it gets colder and colder, if your glow plugs are not healthy, you are going to be running into hard starting issues, a lot of smoke on startup. It's just going to be a bit more of a pain. It doesn't mean it's not going to work, but it's going to give you a little more grief. The very first thing I would recommend checking is to make sure you have 2 strong, healthy batteries going into winter. These things require a lot of power to start. 2 strong, healthy batteries, I would say at least 850 cold cranking amps on each battery. 2 healthy batteries at that power level or better, you're going to be good off. Next up, make sure you have good, clean terminal connections. Clean it all up and make sure you have a good connection. Even on a healthy truck, if you don't have a really good, powerful, or a really good, clean connection, you can really start to notice a slowdown in the cranking over of your engine because it's not getting enough power. So good, healthy batteries, good, healthy terminal connections. And then moving on from there, let's go take a look under the hood. I'm going to get a little wet for you guys here in the rain, and I'm going to show you what to check on the glow plug system. Let's see if I can get this opened up one-handed here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to start off by saying that my engine bay is obviously going to look a little bit different than your guys because I have a lot of aftermarket stuff done to it, but for the most part, the same general concepts will still apply to you guys. So talking about the glow plug systems on these trucks, what we're looking at right over here, or is what you want to look at over here, is you're going to have 2 relays right here. One is this brown one is this black one. So on a stock truck, you're going to be having 2 relays that look like that brown one there. They're going to be basically identical relays. The front one is for your intake air heater, which you don't need to worry about. It's nothing important. Just don't even worry about it. The second one, more towards the rear of your engine, is your glow plug relay. These relays are notorious for going out on people, and that is the heart of your glow plug system. Now, as you can see, mine is not a stock relay. This is the White Rogers relay, which is a extra heavy duty upgraded relay. Just for you guys to know, all these parts I'm going to be talking about, I'll link down in the description below so you guys can pick them up for yourselves if you want them. I'll link both the stock relay and the upgraded White Rogers one. But basically, so what I'm going to be showing you guys is I'm going to demonstrate all the stuff on this front relay, even though it applies to the back one, just so you guys can see it, because you guys can't really see the terminals back there very well. So pretend that this is the back relay and it's your glow plug relay. So what you're going to have here, and what you want to check to make sure your glow plug relay is good, is that big terminal on the left side. That is going to be your constant hot. That should have a constant 12 volts. It's hooked up to your batteries. That's the main power supply. The big terminal on the right side is what goes to your glow plugs when the relay is tripped. How you test this is you go into the truck, turn the key on so you get the wait to start light, and then that little terminal in the back, it should start receiving power from the computer telling it to turn on the relay. That is the trigger wire. The bottom wire is a ground wire to ground it out. So first test, turn the key on, make sure that little terminal in the back is getting power. If that little terminal is in the back is getting power, then you check this big terminal on the right and make sure the relay is actually clicking. If you're receiving power at that terminal and you're not getting it through to the big terminal, that means your relay's bad and you need to replace it. It's basically as simple as that. That's all you have to do to check it. If maybe you don't have the funds to replace the relay or whatever at some point, or you're in a pinch, what you can do is take a screwdriver and across the terminals from that big one on the left to the big one on the right. That's just going to jump past the relay, and then you can manually supply power to your glow plugs. Do it for 20 or 30 seconds, hop in the truck and give it a start. But my recommendation before going into this winter, make sure your relay is good and healthy and replace it if it's not working. Again, your actual glow plug relay is not this front one, it is the back one. I just couldn't show you guys that. The White Rogers relay is a upgraded relay, something that you should really never have to replace again if you get it. If you are in a pinch, you can use a typical parts store relay, but I would highly recommend to only go with a White Rogers or with a Motorcraft relay. Otherwise, you're probably going to be replacing them every year. My experience with it and a lot of other people's experience with it, go Motorcraft or go with a White Rogers. Otherwise, don't waste your time. That is the first part of the glow plug system. The second part of the glow plug system is the actual glow plugs. So now, like I said, you have a glow plug in each cylinder. You're not going to be able to see them from here. They're underneath the valve covers, but you can test them without pulling the valve covers. Obviously, it's easier to get a good connection on the glow plug itself, but if you don't want to pull the valve covers, all you have to do is unplug the wiring harness, which is right. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Right in there. You're not going to be able to see it very well, but on the inside of each valve cover for the Super Duties, there's one plug in the middle, one plug in the middle. OBSs have two plugs on each side, but all you have to do is ohm test the glow plugs or resistance test the glow plugs, which basically means ground out your voltage meter and then apply the power test probe to the pin that goes to the glow plug. I'll see if I can find a diagram, but there's a lot of write-ups online about it. All you're doing is testing it through the system, and technically if you have a short in your wiring harness, that's going to cause issues, but we're assuming that your wiring harness is all good, or your valve cover harness is all good, so you can test them through that. If you want to do that, look up another video on it. I don't have any videos on it, but there's a lot of videos and a lot of write-ups. It's pretty darn easy to do. What you're looking for each glow plug is between 0.5 and 2 ohms. If it is outside that range, the glow plug is pretty much bad and you should replace it. If all your glow plugs are between 0.5 and 2 ohms, they're all good to go. If your relay's good, you're good to go. Your glow plug system is healthy. Going into the winter, especially if you live in a cold climate, those are the two most important things you can possibly do to your truck to make sure you're not going to have any issues starting your truck this winter. That's basically all there is to look at under the hood of the truck. So I'm going to move down to the next step. And we'll go from there. All right, so there you go. That's the first steps to making sure your truck is ready for winter. I can't emphasize enough how much these trucks rely on the glow plug system to start. If your glow plug relay's out entirely, you're going to have a really rough time starting, because that means no glow plugs are going to be getting power. If you have a few glow plugs out, you can usually get by unless you're in really cold environments. But in general, I would recommend that if you have any glow plugs out and you're getting under the valve cover harnesses to replace them, just replace them all. They're not that expensive. I think they're like $9 or $10 a piece. For the peace of mind, knowing your truck's not going to be leaving you stranded anytime soon, to me it's worth it. So moving on from there, the next thing is the block heater. As far as I know, just about every single one of these trucks came equipped with a block heater. If it didn't, you probably aren't living in an environment that you really need to worry about it. So now, that being said, if your glow plug system is healthy, I would say the vast majority of you out there will not need to use your block heater. These trucks are really darn good, even below freezing conditions. With strong, healthy glow plug systems, you should be good to go. Now, if you're consistently getting below freezing down to around 0 or colder, the next step is good for you. You're going to be wanting to have your block heater in good condition. There's not a really great way to check your block heater other than what I highly recommend before you start using it consistently is to look over the entire cable and cord of your block heater and make sure there's no cuts or frays, that the entire cord of it is in good condition. I can't tell you how many posts I've seen of people's trucks that have burnt to the ground because there's some sort of short or something in their block heater cord. and it just caught on fire. These things draw a lot of power. And that's kind of another reason that I personally highly recommend making sure your glow plug system's healthy. Is if your glow plug system's healthy, you almost never have to use a block heater. And although the block heaters should consistently be pretty darn good and safe, it's just that extra chance when you're drawing that much power through a cable going into your truck. That much power just has a lot of heat with it. So me personally, I would rather use my glow plug system and keep that healthy than rely on my block heater. Now, that being said, I don't want to concern you guys or scare you guys. It's not a common thing for that stuff to happen. I'm just saying it can happen. So if you're living in an environment where you're constantly getting below freezing or below 0 degrees, go through, check your block heater cord, and make sure it's all in good condition and it looks healthy. If you have any questions about it, just go pick up a new one. It's not worth the risk. Let me show you guys where to look, where to find your block heater cord. 99% of the time, this is where it's going to be. So we're looking at the front of the truck. 99% of the time, if you're looking at your truck, it's going to be right behind this little pillar inside the bumper. Let me go see if I can pull mine out for you guys so you guys can see it. I believe even on the OBS trucks it is in the same general spot. Just fish your hand right here, and here it is, just tucked in behind your block heater. Mine's still got the cover on it. I have never used my block heater on this truck. Never had to. I don't live in a state where it gets quite cold enough. Very rarely do we see below 20 degrees and into the teens. Maybe a few times a year. So I've never had to use my block heater on this truck, but that is where it is. Find it behind the driver's side of your bumper, and then you can just trace it back alongside your engine back to where it enters. If you can't find it behind your bumper, go down underneath your truck and find your oil filter. You should know where that is. The block heater is going to be where it connects into the block, is right above your oil filter. So if you have it, that's where you're going to find it. If you don't, it's not going to be there. It should be a kind of a bright orange cord going in right above your oil filter, screwing into place. So if you can't find it in your bumper, go check there. Take it, give it a good look over, make sure it's in good condition. Moving on from that, if you are going to be consistently using your block heater, what I would recommend is getting a heavy-duty outlet timer. Don't get a cheap one for like Christmas lights and stuff. These things take a lot of power. Get one rated for the draw of these trucks. I don't remember off the top of my head how many amps these things draw, but it's a lot. So look it up. Make sure you get one that is rated for that kind of power. Otherwise, you might be burning down your house while you're at it. The reason I recommend getting one of these is there's no point in plugging your truck in all night. It takes 2 or 3 hours for the engine block heater to get things up to temperature. So these things take a lot of power. You're literally going to be just throwing money out the window if you have it plugged in all night. So my recommendation is get one of those. Set it for around 3 hours before you have to get up in the morning. So that way the block heater can turn on for you 2 or 3 hours before you wake up and it's good to go, and you don't have to be paying to run it all night. Not to mention, less time running, less chance of it shorting out. So if you're going to be running consistently, I would recommend picking up an outlet timer for that. So that's basically the main things you need to know to make sure your truck starts reliably in the winter. Going here, these are kind of some extra tips and knowledge just to kind of help you guys out, learn a little bit more about the trucks and things that might help you out. The one thing you guys should know is about the wake to start light. You all see it when you turn on the key. When you turn the key on in your truck, you get the wake to start light, the glow plug light. What that is you're basically waiting for the glow plugs to warm up enough before you turn over the engine. That way they get enough heat in it. Now that wake to start light is not tied into the glow plug system at all. It is not a true wake to start light. What I mean by that is your glow plugs usually run for 30 or so seconds, and your wake to start light is usually 10 to 15 seconds. So a lot of times you'll hear people say, if it's super cold, cycle the glow plugs a few times and then start it up. Basically what they're saying is turn the key on, cycle the glow plugs, so they turn on, let them sit, and then eventually they're going to turn off, so you turn the key back, turn them on again, and that just kind of ensures that they get really, really nice and hot. And I'm going to tell you, doing that will burn your glow plugs up faster, meaning you have to replace them sooner, but in a really cold environment, it may be something you have to do. That being said, your glow plugs will run for 30 to 45 seconds. So my recommendation would be turn the key on, buckle up, get situated, wait 30 to 45 seconds. Your wait to start light's going to turn off. Your glow plugs are still going to be running. After about 30 seconds or so, then try to start the truck. If it doesn't, don't be cranking it to lower your batteries, because as soon as your batteries get too low, you're screwed. If it's not starting right away, turn the key back off, turn it on, wait another 30 seconds or so. That is how you properly cycle the glow plugs on your truck. Don't go off the wait to start light. Go off around 30 seconds or so. If you know it's going to be super cold out and you're not able to plug in your truck, cycling the glow plugs can really help out. Cranking and turning over the truck draws a lot of power from the batteries. You don't want to be doing that a lot. So if you're able to, and you know you might have an issue starting it, just cycle the glow plugs twice, maybe 3 times. I would say twice, and go from there. But you don't want to be draining your batteries down to a certain point, because if your batteries get below a certain voltage, your injectors will not fire at all. So you want to be careful in the order you try to do things. Don't just crank it till the truck dies. If your glow plug system is fully healthy and operational, you should have no issues relying on that. I would say down to around 0 degrees. Now that we're getting down to those temperatures, there are 2 other things that you need to keep in mind. One of them is gelling diesel. Now, a lot of the pumps out there in environments that get down to this level where diesel will actually start to gel, they usually start adding in supplements into the fuel to keep it from happening. But if you're driving from somewhere that is a warmer environment and you're driving to somewhere that's going to be cold and you're not going to be filling up the tank yet, chances are it would be a really good idea to have some diesel 911 with you just in case. Now, optimally, you're going to treat your own fuel when you fill it up so that it doesn't gel. For those of you that don't know what diesel gelling is, it's basically, I can't remember the exact temperature. I'll look it up and put it up on the screen for you guys, but diesel will actually start to freeze once it gets down to a certain temperature, and when that happens, it gets super thick and jelly, and you're not going to be able to pump it. You're not going to be able to run it through your system. You're going to be up shit creek without a paddle. Diesel 911, if you catch it soon enough, you can add it to your tank and it will help thaw out the diesel. But your best bet, if you live in a really cold environment, is where it consistently gets below whatever that temperature is I put up on the screen. Get some winter fuel additive and just add it into every tank. It's the best thing you can do. That way you don't have to worry about it. Second is another trick that I've done, and I know a lot of people do, is the actual oil you put in your truck. The general weight I think that Ford recommends for this truck is 15W40, just standard oil, standard diesel oil. It is totally fine in warm environments, but when it gets down to pretty darn cold, it can start to get pretty thick, which makes it harder for your truck to push it through the system. And if you don't know, our injectors literally fire off high pressure oil, so they need a healthy supply of oil, and when it gets thick enough, it makes it hard for the injectors to fire. So what a lot of people do in really cold environments is in the winter when it starts to get colder, they switch to 5W40 synthetic oil. Now, I actually did a test on this where I put a cup of 1540 and a cup of 5W40 in the freezer and left them there for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. I can't remember what it was. And then I poured them out just so you guys can see the difference. I'll post that video here up on the screen somewhere if you want to check it out. But you can see just how much smoother the 5W40 runs when it is below freezing conditions. So if you're living in a really cold environment, it does actually help to switch over to that synthetic, at least for the winter. It's more expensive. You don't have to run it all year, but it really helps the truck turn over faster, which aids in starting your truck. Quick recap. 1, make sure your batteries are healthy and fresh and can hold a good amount of power. Make sure your battery terminals are having good connection with your batteries. That alone can make even warm starts harder. From there, make sure your glow plug relay is working properly. If it's not, replace it, no questions asked. Going from there, check your glow plugs. They're easy to check. Just get a multimeter. There's a lot of forums and write-ups on how to do it. But basically, you're just making sure the glow plugs, each one of them checks between 0.5 and 2 ohms. If it's outside of that spectrum, the glow plug needs to be replaced. It's not working properly or at all. If you're going to be using your block heater consistently, I would highly recommend going under the truck, making sure the cable is in good condition. There's no frays, no cuts. You don't want to be burning your truck to the ground. And I personally would recommend putting it on an outlet timer that is rated for the amperage or the power draw of these trucks. It is a lot. You don't want to be burning anything down, and you also don't want to be throwing money out the window keeping your truck warm all night when you can just turn it on 2 or 3 hours before you need to leave. If you're stuck somewhere where you can't plug in and it's really cold, cycle your glow plugs for about 30 seconds or so, 2 or 3 times. You shouldn't have any issues starting up. Even with a couple of glow plugs down, that'll help out a lot. If you know you're in a cold environment, you're going to be there all winter, it does not hurt to switch over to synthetic for the winter. Something that is brought up every single winter, it is completely normal to see white smoke coming out of your tailpipe until the truck warms up. It basically just means because the cylinder walls are still so cold, you're not getting full burning rate of the fuel in your cylinders. So you're going to get a pretty good amount of white smoke on startup. Once the truck warms up, it should be getting less and less until it's basically gone. If it never goes away, then you have other issues. But don't be concerned about white smoke when you start up your truck. Totally normal in cold conditions. Last but not least, in extreme situations where I'm talking like people that live up in Alaska, live up in Canada, somewhere up in the northern hemisphere where it gets very, very cold. We're talking well into the negatives, negative 30, negative 40. I'm going to say this right now. Do not be afraid to just let your truck run the entire winter. You would not be the first person to do that, and you will not be the last person to do that. I have read countless stories of guys that live up in those conditions where it's literally negative 40 for months on end, and they don't turn their truck off the entire winter. It's not going to kill these trucks. They don't have the emission systems that you have to worry about clogging up. These trucks can reliably run for months on end as long as everything's healthy on them. So if you are living in one of those conditions, one, I'm sorry. I wouldn't want to be you. Jokes aside, but don't be afraid to run your truck overnight. If you're afraid that it's not going to start in the morning and you need it to be running, just let it idle overnight. It'll be totally fine. It's not going to damage the truck. It'll be all right. There are countless people out there that have let their trucks do this for the entire winter. As far as warm-up times go for your truck, me personally, I like to let my truck oil get to around 80 degrees or so before I start to driving it, 70 or 80 degrees. Now, if you're just running off the factory gauges on the gauge cluster, you're not going to be able to see exact numbers by any means. So personally, I would recommend waiting it till the needle gets to that very first line, driving it easy, trying to keep it under 1,500 to 2,000 RPMs until it gets up to somewhere in the normal operating range. Obviously, the colder it gets, the longer you have to let it warm up. That's my personal preference. There's a lot of opinions on this. Some people just hop in and go and just drive it nice and easy. You're not going to destroy anything by driving it cold, but I would recommend at least driving it easy if you're not going to let it warm up. Personally, letting it warm up for 5 to 10 minutes is not an issue for me, but I'll leave that decision up to you guys. Last but not least, the dreaded oil cooler leak. Every single year, this time of year, you see people posting online, why is my truck dripping a ton of oil first thing in the morning when I start it up when it's cold, and it doesn't drip when it's warm? 9.5 times out of 10, this is because of your oil cooler. Your oil cooler is on the bottom driver's side of your engine. It runs your oil through it as well as coolant through it, and that's what your truck uses to keep the oil cool in the truck. Now this has it's this big long tube thing right down by the oil pan of your truck. It connects to your oil filter, or your oil filter connects to it. It has these 2 large O-rings on each side of it, on both end caps, and in cold conditions, if the O-rings are not in good shape, they'll freeze up and shrink a little bit. And so that way, when you start up the truck, oil can slip past it. You start leaking a bunch of oil in your truck, and when the truck warms up, it doesn't leak at all. Because as it warms up, the O-rings expand and seal up. So if you're having a situation like that where you first started up your oil cooler, or you got a bunch of oil dripping out of your engine, and when it's warm it seems totally fine, check your oil cooler. That's usually the problem. It's not that hard to fix. You can get a simple rebuild kit. I'll see if I can find one and link it down below. But it's not that hard to do. Just know that's why it is. So I think that's just about everything that I can give you in terms of advice. Hopefully it was helpful to some of you newer guys out there. I'm sure this video probably got a little bit longer than I planned, but it is what it is. If I did miss anything, to all you other experts out there that have been with the 7.3s for a long time, leave it down in the comments below. All the input helps somebody out. You gotta remember that at some point, all of us were new to these engines, trying to figure things out. So hopefully this helps some of you guys out. I know this wasn't the most exciting video. I'm hoping to get into some better content here in the near future. I know things have been kind of slow recently. Now that I got the table built, hopefully I'll be starting on that bumper here in the near future. Kind of depends on how this big thing in my life is going. I'm not going to say a whole lot about that right now, but I will say that if it goes through, it's going to be changing the channel big time. But don't be afraid. I'm still going to be doing some truck stuff, but it is going to be a big change to the channel, something that I am super, super excited about. So fingers crossed it goes through. A lot of cool content coming from it if it does. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Life goes on. But I'll update you guys on that a little bit later. If you're new here, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of content posted on that truck that you saw. Obviously, the truck is far from stock under the hood. It's far from stock all the way around. Just me doing cool stuff, trying to build cool trucks and whatnot. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. To all my current subscribers, as always, if you like the video, leave it a thumbs up. Questions or comments, leave them down below. Coming up on 10,000 subscribers still. Should be there hopefully by Christmas. I'm hoping by Christmas we can pass this 10,000 subscriber mark, which would be a super cool Christmas gift. Thank you all who have decided to tune in. I really do genuinely appreciate it. So I'm going to stop rambling now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Catch you guys on the next video.